My previous boat was a Prowler Ultra 4.3, and don't get me wrong, it was a great boat, but there were 2 or 3 things that really made it difficult for me to fish. I don't think that they're design flaws as such, but there were things that I just really struggled with. So I decided to change, and I went for one of these, which is a Viking Profish Reload. It's about the same length as my previous kayak, so 14.5 feet long. But there are some noticeable differences, and it was those differences that really convinced me that this would be the boat for me. So I'll take you through what it's like and reasons why I changed over to this one. We'll start at the front and end at the back and see what's what in the middle. Like most kayaks of this sort of style, the front of the kayak is shaped in order to throw water away from the kayak. Now that helps it cut through the surf, cut through the waves, and makes it a really quick kayak to paddle. It's definitely faster than my Prowler Ultra 4.3, and I think it's probably one of the fastest plastic paddle kayaks that you can get. Now it's not going to be as fast as some of the big fiberglass boats, but even so it does a brilliant job, and it's certainly very easy to paddle. One of the nice little design features of this particular kayak is they've shifted the front hatch back a little bit, and that gives this whole area on the top free to put in this rather nifty little rod holder. So you can imagine you're going in through the surf and you want to get your rods down quickly. Well, that's what these are for. So they've got 4 grooves and 2 notches on either side here that allow you to store the rods through the elastic here, and that gets them nicely out of the way. It's very easy to do. All you have to do is follow the grooves along with the rod's eyes down, and it just slips into place. As easy as you like. And to reverse, you just do exactly the same. So turn the rod over and it slides out. And that can be done whether they're rigged up or not. These are quite long rods. Mine are 8'2", I think, which is probably the maximum that you want for a kayak. But even so, there's plenty of room to get them out of the way should you be coming in through the surf. And I really like that. That shows that it's been thought out for anglers. My previous boat had a chute inside the hatch, and the idea was that you put them in there and they'd be right out of the way. But I never found a rod that I could actually do that with. Rods that break up with a butt section and then a main blank never fitted in. It was hopeless. This system works really well though, so I'm very pleased that they've done that. So moving on to that front hatch, it's a pretty good design. Because there's a nice angle here, water runs straight off, and I've never had any problems with water getting inside. I will say that it is not the easiest of hatches to open. It is a little bit stiff. Obviously the upside to that is it's very difficult for moisture to get in, and as you can see, inside, plenty of room for the obligatory sea tug. I've only got the standard wheels, but the sand trap wheels fit in absolutely fine as well. There's also plenty of other space in there for things like a jacket if you want, all those bits and pieces that you might need but aren't really an emergency device. Because it's that much further back away from the bow, it does mean that you can get into it if you're on the water. It's a little bit tricky and you don't want to do it too much, but it is possible. Having said that, getting it back on is a bit of a battle, and it's not the easiest of things to do, as you can see. But once it's on, it's not as easy as things like the ocean kayak ones, but it is watertight, which is probably the main thing. So we'll keep going forward and we'll come to the thing that I really wanted about the kayak, which was of course the removable centre hatch. I think this is a brilliant design. This whole section comes out. There's a pin just here. You release that and out slots the whole thing. This makes the kayak much lighter when you want to get it on and off the roof, and it also means that the fish finder, the transducer and all your tackle stuff can get set up the night before. Then it's just a matter of picking it up, slotting it into place and putting the pin back in. And you're ready to go. There's a hole that's completely sealed here that runs straight through to the transducer. So the transducer is always in the water. but water can't get into the inside where you keep all your stuff. On top, you've got this piece of elastic. Now, it doesn't come with this webbing. I made that specially because when you lift the lid up, if you've got things in there, they all fall out. Not great. So I just made a little bit of webbing here out of some string and attached that there. That stops it. But it's a really clever design. On top, you've got a chopping board as well. I've added a couple of eyes there because I like to hang the hook just there when I'm baiting up. Keeps it out of the way, but I know where it is and it's easily accessible. Inside, you've got plenty of room. A couple of tackle boxes, reasonably big, and my main tackle box as well. And a packet for my rigs. The battery is also in there, and there's still room at the back to fit some other stuff should I want some lunch in there or a small first aid kit. It really is much bigger than I was expecting. I was a little bit worried that all of this wouldn't go in, but actually I think there's more room in here than there was on my previous kayak. Now, one thing I did do is here, this was a little bit higher and it had an overlap. I had to take an electric jigsaw and just take a centimetre off and the overhang out of the way. I've not had any problems with water ingress since I did that, and it just means everything's so much easier to get in and out. It fitted originally, but this just makes it a little more hassle-free. And then you've got a piece of elastic to keep it all nice and snug. I've put a couple of Railblazer starports on there. Sometimes I have an open bar rod rest that sits here. I don't have it at the moment because I broke it trying to throw a paddle into a tree, but that's another story. And my fish finder is on one as well. It's a really basic system. One lead goes straight through the hole that's in there, and the other one goes through into the tackle pod where the battery is. In the middle, you've also got a little hatch here, and this is where I keep my mobile phone and a few bits and pieces. It's completely dry. I never have any problems with water getting in, and it's just a matter of a turn to the right and the lid pops off. And in there I've got, well, at the moment I've got homemade rod leashes and my paddle leash. There's a little pot in there as well. Now, I bought this kayak second hand, obviously. Why would I buy a new one? And originally it didn't sit properly in there, and it made the lid very difficult to get on and off. In the end, what I had to do was I had to pour a load of hot water, boiling water into it, and then press down on an upside down mixing bowl in order to make the underneath slightly convex or concave, depending on which way you're looking at it, in order to make it fit. I don't know why. Design flaw maybe, I'm not sure. But anyway, that seemed to have solved the problem. And as I said, it's completely dry. There is at the bottom a little plug, so if you want to use it as a live well, you can for live bait. But to be honest, I just leave it in there, and it's an easy access point should I want anything like mobile phone, that sort of thing. Slight downside is the bit here is a little bit covered when you put the seat on, so it's slightly in the way. Your legs are slightly in the way, and the flap just covers it a bit. It's no major issue, but I think, yeah, it does get a little bit annoying, but it's hardly a big deal. I don't use this hatch that much actually. Most of the time it just has things put in it at the beginning of the day and taken out at the end. But it is a convenient place for it. On the sides, I fitted a couple of pad eyes, and on here are my little clips for my rod leashes, and they just clip on there. I've got exactly the same on the flush mounted rod tubes there as well. They can just be taken off and on with one clip and moved to the back or to the other ones should I need to. Now, the other thing that I really wanted on my new kayak was these flush mounted rod tubes that pointed away from the boat. My previous one, my Prowler Ultra 4.3, had them, but unfortunately they pointed straight up in the air at the wrong angle. So bait fishing from it wasn't that easy. It meant that I had to fit tracks sort of side tracks on there and then put my rods on extenders and then rod holders after that. And it was just a little bit clumsy. It meant that I was missing bites because I was too busy faffing around trying to get the rod out. This, I hope, will be much more straightforward. Another thing that really annoyed me about my previous kayak, and I've got no idea why this is, but I really struggled with somewhere to put the anchor and buoy once I brought it up. I'd put it in the back and it would get tangled with things. I'd put it front, it would just get in the way of my feet. I never really found a settled place to put it. And it seems such a silly little thing, but these hatches just behind the seat have solved all that. Like the round hatch in the middle, it's a twist and pull off, and there's plenty of room in there. My anchor sits in there with the buoy, and it's all solved. Happy as the day is long. Also with these, you've got a proper bung in the bottom, so you can again fill it up with water and use it as a live bait well, should you so desire. But if you don't, it's a really good bung, assuming you turn it the right way to do it up. It's a really good bung, so water isn't going to get in should you want to keep other things for it. The lids do float, but I've attached a little piece of string to it just in case, because obviously then they can float away. And they're really easy to do. You can do it with one hand, so just because they're behind the seat doesn't make it any harder to get at them. It's a great system. In the middle I've put a stainless steel ring, and this is where I attach my paddle leash to. And more of these little clips. Now I can unclip and reclip anywhere on the boat with my rod leashes with one hand. It's very, very easy. You've got 4 pointing backwards, 2 that go out either side, and then 2 that are straight down the middle. So lastly, right at the stern of the boat, we've got a Railblazer starport, and I think this comes as standard. I don't think this is one that's been added. I think these come as standard, which is quite a nice touch. And then a rudder at the back, which obviously, as is the style these days, attaches to the pedals. It's not one of the ones where you've got a lever where you can pull it up and down. Instead, it's designed to flick up should you hit anything at the back. It works pretty well. I think I still prefer the type that fold over and then you can pull it up and down. But, you know, I haven't had any problems with it since I've got it. So there we have a quick overview of the Viking Profish Reload and what it's like, and a few things that I've done to it. I won't know exactly what it's like to bait fish until I've taken it out on the open ocean. So that, I think, is probably the next stage. We'll get it out of the shed and onto the sea.